graphing systems of linear equations. So we're still graphing systems, or we're still solving systems, but now we're going to look at the solutions graphed. So which represents the graph of the system y equals 2x plus 4 and 6x plus 2y equals negative 6. Now, you've heard me say it before, when it comes to graphing, the easiest form to graph from is slope-intercept form. This is slope-intercept form right here. The reason it's called that is because this number is the slope, we use m, and this number is the y-intercept, we'll use b. So this is y equals mx plus b form, which is slope-intercept form, because you're given the slope and you're given the intercept. So we need to take this other equation and put it into slope-intercept form as well. And it's easy to do. We just have to isolate the y. So I'm going to write it again up here. 6x plus 2y equals negative 6. So we need the y term by itself, which means we're going to subtract 6x from both sides. I get 2y equals, now remember, I can't combine these like terms on the right side. I have to keep them separate because one has an x and one doesn't. So I'm going to write the x term first, but I'm going to make sure I keep that negative in front of it so I don't change the value. And now the last step is to divide everything by 2. And we end up with y equals negative 3x minus 3. So that means that we have a slope of 3 and a y-intercept of negative 3. So that's what we have to look for on our graph. So let's look at the first one. Remember, we're looking for a y-intercept of 4 and a slope of 2. Let's look for that first. So y-intercept of 4 would be 1, 2, 3, 4 would be right here. And from here, we're looking for it to go up to and over 1. So that doesn't look like it's going to be it. Right? Oh, you know what? I apologize, you guys. I typed the slope incorrectly. Let me just fix it before we continue. This first equation is supposed to have a slope of 1/2. This is supposed to be y equals 1/2 x plus 4. My apologies, you guys. So this is our slope. This number will be our slope. And this number will be our y-intercept. In any case, we don't have a y-intercept of 4 in this first graph. And then if we have a slope of 1/2, that means we'd go up 1 over 2. So it would look like that. Right, just a rough sketch. So let's try the next graph. In the next graph, we're still looking for the same thing, right? We're looking for a y-intercept of 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and a slope of 1/2, up 1 over 2. Nope. All right, let's look at the third graph. We're looking for a slope-intercept of 4, so far so good, and a y-intercept of 4, and a slope of 1/2, up 1 over 2. So far, this is the correct choice for that equation. Now, you don't have to check the other equation just because the other ones didn't contain y equals 2x plus 4, so you don't have to check the other graphs, with the other equation. But just for some practice, let's just make sure that this is graphed here. So we've got a y-intercept of negative 3 and a slope of negative 3. So a y-intercept of negative 3, that is in the right spot. And then a slope of negative 3 means we have to go down 1, 2, 3, and over 1. So that also checks out. So both of the equations check out here, which means that's the correct choice. Solve the system, and we're given this system using graph paper or graphing technology. What is the solution to the system? Okay, so just like on the previous problem, anytime you're asked to graph, please, please, please remember that the easiest way to graph is from slope-intercept form. So let's get both of these equations into that form. And the way you do it is by getting the y alone. So first things first, to get the 2y alone, I subtract 3x from both sides. And I get 2y equals, and on the right side, I cannot combine the 15 and the negative 3x because they're not like terms. So I'm going to write the x term first, so I'll have negative 3x, and then I'll write the number. And lastly, divide everything by 2 to get y alone. So I'm left with y equals negative 3/2 x plus 15 halves. Right? I can't simplify that any further. Let's look at the other equation. Let's do that one in green. All right, so the other equation, 2x minus y equals negative 4. Again, we're getting y alone, so subtract 2x from both sides. Negative y equals negative 2x minus 4. Divide both sides by negative 1. And we're left with y equals 2x plus 4. Right, so those are our two equations. Let's start by graphing the blue one. Remember that this is my y-intercept, that's my starting point, and this is my slope. So my starting point is 15 halves. Well, if I think of that as a number, 15 divided by 2 is 7.5. So my starting point for this graph is going to be right about here. And then my slope, I want you to look at slope and think of it as the directions to get to the next point, because that's all it is. If it's negative, you're going to go down to get to the next point. If it's positive, you're going to go up. But in both cases, you're going to move to the right. So here we've got negative 3 over 2. That means I'm going to go down 3 because it's negative. So down 3 and then right 2. So from here I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3. I'm still trying to stay like right in that center. And then over 1, 2. So it looks like my point would be right there. So there are my 2 points, and I'm going to connect them. Let's see. Try to connect them as carefully as I can so that I maintain that slope. All right, that's pretty good. Let's look at the green equation. So the green equation is 2x plus 4. So when you're looking at these, remember, hold on, let me go back and grab my pencil. Remember that this, all right, remember that this is always where you start on the y-axis, and this gives you directions to the next point. Now this time my slope is a whole number. Remember that slope is always a fraction. It's either going to be up and over, up and right, or down and right. So when you don't have a fraction, you can make it into a fraction by putting it over 1, because 2 means the same thing as 2 over 1. Okay, so let's start with b. b is 4, which means I have to start on the y-axis at 4. 1, 2, 3, so that would be right here. And then my slope is 2, or 2 over 1, which means I'm going to go up 2 and over 1. Well, I think it's pretty clear to see where these intersect. And let me just make that point a little bit bigger. All right, so the solution to the system is going to be the point where the two lines cross. So that's going to be this point right here. And that is the point 1. All right, write the equation that's solved by the graphed system of equations. So now we're going backwards. Before we were looking at equations, writing them in slope-intercept form and graphing, right? But now we're looking at graphs, and we're going to figure out the equation. Okay, so let's start with the blue one. For the blue one, I've got, always start with your y-intercept, right? A y-intercept of 0, so my b is 0. And then from this point, the next clear point I can see, like that's not clear, that's not clear. This is the next clear point that I can see. So to get to the next clearly defined point, I'd have to go up to and over 3. So up to over 3 gives me a slope. I'll write it over here. A slope of 2/3. All right, so that's what I've got for my blue equation. That's enough information to write the equation. So y equals mx plus b. We're going to put the slope in here, and we're going to put the y-intercept in here. So we get y equals 2/3 x plus 0. Or we can just leave it like that, right? Let's do the purple one. Okay, for the purple one, I have a y-intercept down here. That's always where you start. B is equal to -4. Then from that point, the next point I can see, like this is not clear. Oh, but this is a clear point. I can see right where that is. To get to that point, I have to go up to, again, and this time I'm just going over 1. So if I go up to and over 1, that means my slope is 2/1, or we could just say 2. Using those two pieces of information, again, I'm going to plug in this value of m that I just found 2. I just got it from the graph. Is going to go right in this m spot. And my b, which is my y-intercept, -4, is going to go right in this spot. So I would get y equals 2x minus 4, right? Because it's a -4 for b. So the equation that would be solved by this system is where these two expressions on the right side are set equal to each other. So 2/3 x equals 2x minus 4. So just to sum it up, we've got 3 scenarios here. When we have one solution, that means we have an intersection point, and that means that our lines have different slopes, right? Because that's how they're going to intersect, is if they have different slopes. If we have no solution, that means that there's no intersection, and the only type of lines that have no intersection are parallel lines. And what we know about parallel lines is that their slopes are the same. Right? So these lines have equal slopes but different y-intercepts. So different, they start in different places, but they move to the next point in the same way. And the last case is infinite solutions, which is when you get 2 equations that graph the same line. And of course they have equal slopes, and of course they have the same y-intercept because they're the same line. And that's it.